President Reiring, the meeting is now being recorded.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Lizzy. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the May 20th, 2020 Harbor District Commission meeting. Melanie, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Chen Crowley? Commissioner Lorenas?
Muted by host.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear anybody but Commissioner Lorenas.
Okay.
So why don't we start over again? Commissioner Brennan?
Here.
Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Present.
Commissioner Lorenas?
Here.
Commissioner Reiring?
Here.
Commissioner Matush? Commissioner Matush, I think you're muted.
There appears to be a technical difficulty. Please wait just 1 second.
Okay, yes. Present and accounted for.
Great. All right, good. Thank you. I have some remarks to make before we start the meeting tonight. Our staff has daily gone to extraordinary lengths to keep the district functioning and moving forward during this pandemic. And I want to start this meeting by thanking everyone working at home and at our harbors for their efforts. As with every other public agency, we continue to face the challenges of conducting the public's business in meetings held by video conference. My role as chair is to make sure we have a platform that allows us to address each item on the agenda in a thoughtful and deliberate manner. That said, we need to be more disciplined in following proper parliamentary procedure during the meeting, and perhaps more importantly, being courteous and respectful to our fellow commissioners. This is our obligation to the public that we serve. For this reason, I'm setting forward some rules for this Zoom meeting. In order to make sure that every commissioner is heard on the various agenda items, I will poll each commissioner in random order for each matter, just as I've done on the previous Zoom meetings. Please keep your comments until it is your turn so that all of our remarks can be clearly understood and recorded. To better manage this process, I will keep all microphones on mute until I recognize the speaker. This will allow each person his or her opportunity to speak without interruption during the speaker's allotted time. That time limit is 2 minutes and has been since 2019 when Commissioner Brennan was president, and the board voted to limit comment on each item to 2 minutes on a rotating basis, and this rule still stands. Should you wish to make a comment outside of your turn, please ask the chair for recognition to speak by raising your hand on the Zoom platform. These additional comments must be regarding the agenda item at hand and should not repeat comments that you've already made. I will limit any additional comments to 1 minute. Should you wish to ask a question, please ask the chair for recognition to speak by raising your hand on the Zoom platform. Your question should be directed to the agenda item being considered. Any speaker who does not follow these parliamentary procedures will be ruled out of order. If the speaker does not comply with the parliamentary procedures after being ruled out of order, I will place the speaker's microphone on mute. These rules treat everyone equally and fairly. Each commissioner has an opportunity to ask questions, make comments on the agenda item that's being considered. And our agenda allows each commissioner the opportunity to make general comments. Accordingly, these rules do not infringe on anyone's right to speak or anyone's ability to take action on the important matters before us. This should go without saying, but as we begin this meeting, I ask that we all conduct ourselves in a manner that has the public's interest at heart. This Zoom meeting is not the platform to air personal grievances. Such displays do not serve our community. They're destructive to our extraordinary staff who dedicate themselves to making our agency successful, and they are absolutely unbecoming of our board. With regard to that, at our last meeting, Commissioner Brennan engaged in conduct that was completely disruptive to our meeting, and she was ruled out of order on at least 3 separate occasions. Her inappropriate conduct did not serve the public, as evidenced by the difficulties we faced in conducting our business that evening and by the public's reaction to the meeting. This conduct was unacceptable by any measure. For this reason, I will be bringing the matter up again later when we are discussing future agenda items. Now to begin the agenda. For item number B, public comments, commissioner comments, and committee updates, I am moving all of these to the end of our agenda. And in the interest of addressing our business within our established meeting time, I am making a motion to limit both commissioner comments and comments by the public to 2 minutes each. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Roll call, Melanie.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
No.
The motion carries. So on to the consent calendar. I'll be moving pulled consent calendar items to the end of the agenda, if there are any. Otherwise, we have the consent calendar in front of us. Are there any comments or questions on the consent calendar, or do I have a motion to approve it?
No, actually, I would like to pull item number 3 off. Those are the minutes from the April 15th meeting. I think that there may not have been accurate. It may not have been as accurate, and so I would like to pull that off right now and maybe make some changes and bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay, so we have item number 3. Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the consent items minus item 3?
My hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see it. Commissioner Brennan.
Sorry, I can't tell if you can hear me or not. And just before I get to my point about the consent items, shouldn't there be a raised hand feature on Zoom that we can use instead of physically raising our hands? Isn't there like a little icon we can hit or something?
There is.
The raised hand function should be in the participants block at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, I got that open now. Thank you for that. So with regard to the consent items, I'd like to pull item 1 and item 7. Thank you.
All right, I'm making a note of this. We have pulled items number 1, number 3, and number 7. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar minus those items?
President Reiring, it appears that Commissioner Lorenas is attempting to raise his hand.
Oh, Commissioner Lorenas?
Things. One is I've been trying to communicate. I've been muted since the first agenda item that you put on there, where there was a vote for moving commissioner comments to the end. So I think the recording of my vote was yes on that. I actually wanted no, but I was trying to communicate, and I don't have a raised hand option on the bottom. So I was both muted and didn't have any way to communicate.
So at the bottom
Is
of
there a way to fix that? Because I've got participants, chat, share screen, record, and reactions. I have nothing that says raise hand.
When you click the participants icon, it should pop up raise hand.
Okay, so I have to have that open to raise hand.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, thank you for that. And just for the record, please change my vote to moving commissioner item or comments to the end of the agenda. And I also have a question for the board president, if I may.
Well, right now I'm looking for a, is it about the consent calendar?
It is about process.
I'm not taking questions about process right now, Commissioner Lorenas. I would like to, I think Commissioner Chen Crowley, you had your hand raised for a while about the consent calendar again, or did I get to you?
So this is a Zoom meeting, and it seems like you should have a little leeway for computer problems or communication problems. I was trying to do this during the appropriate agenda time, but because I couldn't communicate, I was not able to make this request.
Okay, Commissioner Lorenas, go ahead.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. And my request was going to be done during the commissioner comments, and that is just simply on the order of the agenda. There's two items that I'm certain members of the public would like to sit and listen to, and they're towards the end of the agenda, and those are the let me see what number they are. They are agenda items 11 and 12. So it would be respectful to the public to put those in front so that they don't have to listen to everything else that we're going to be discussing if they don't want to.
So noted. I don't mind moving those to the beginning of the agenda when we get to the discussion items, number 11 and 12. Go first. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Who have I got?
There's a raised hand from
Crowley.
Yes, I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar without items 1, 3, and 7, I believe. So that means the other items are being moved for approval.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Roll call, Melanie, please.
Commissioner Lorenas?
President Reiring,
Yes.
you might want to check and make sure there's no members of the public that wanted to comment on any of the consent calendar items.
I don't see.
There's a raised hand in the participant list.
Oh, I see. Okay. Timothy, perhaps? Is it Timothy? Timo?
I see a phone number
Timo.
beginning in 6. Oh, I do see that.
Yeah, Timo. Timo?
You've been unmuted for comment, Timo Sieg.
Okay, hello. Actually, this is my son's computer. My name is Samuel Sigu. I'm a commercial fisherman in Half Moon Bay, and I did want to hear and discuss what, Article 1.
Article 1 being,
Well, yeah, she had said you guys were going to talk later on 1, 3, and 7, correct?
correct.
Yeah, yeah, I did have some comments, and I did want to hear what you guys were saying about 1. So I guess I was voting no, I guess, on moving that a little bit later.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment. It's actually just the commissioners who vote on the order of the agenda.
Okay, one of the commissioners did ask if there was anybody from the public here that wanted to speak on that, and I was kind of one of them, so that's why I raised the hand.
Yeah, I understand. We will be taking public comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay, what, if you don't mind me asking, what are the lengths of the meetings at the moment?
Ooh, that's difficult to determine. We are going to try to move quickly through tonight's meeting and be very efficient. Our meetings are scheduled to be between 6:30 and 9, I think it's 9:30 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'll sit and wait.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other comments? I see a number here. Is this you? The 650-455-0809, or is that somebody else?
So phone number ending in 809, you're unmuted for comment.
This is Doreen O'Connor.
Hello, Doreen, go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I was just listening. So number 11 and number 12, you're going to be talking about sooner than what's on the agenda.
That's correct. We're going to be moving items number 11 and number 12 to the beginning of the discussion items.
Okay, I will stay on with you guys and wait till my turn to speak when that happens.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So where did we leave? Did we have a second for the motion to accept the consent calendar items minus the 3 that had been pulled?
I seconded.
Yes.
All right, good. So then, but we haven't voted on it yet. Is that right?
We need to vote.
Yes.
Great. Melanie, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring.
Aye. Thank you, Melanie. All right, and now to our discussion items. We are going to start with item number 11. And that is charges for services and rent, COVID-19 related delinquencies. Julie, I believe this is your agenda item.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Ryrie. Commissioners, good evening. The COVID, Virginia.
Excuse me, Commissioner Chen Crowley. You're muted.
This is the item, I believe, for the charges for services and rent. Is that correct?
That's correct. COVID-19 related delinquencies.
So we have 2 commissioners here who may have a financial conflict of interest, which would be Commissioners Matush and Commissioner Matush and Commissioner Lorenas, because they both have, well, Tom has a business and Ed, I believe, has a boat, as he's mentioned or referenced before. And I don't know if that's a conflict of interest. Is it a conflict of interest since they do pay for services, or they pay for, well, they pay rent, or they pay a fee? Because if there is a conflict, I don't believe, if I remember correctly, can be a part of this discussion. But I look to Tricia, our legal counsel, for guidance on that.
President Ryrie, I believe that both Commissioner Matush and Commissioner Lorenas are raising their hand to speak as to the conflict of interest.
Great. All right. Commissioner Matush?
Yeah, I was going to recuse myself from this item for the aforementioned things. I just couldn't get my hand up and get unmuted. But I have a business. I'm a slip holder, and I don't want to give any signs of impropriety. So for that reason, I'm going to leave the meeting and request a text when it's item 11 has ended.
Thank you, Commissioner Matush. I see Commissioner Lorenas, you have your hand up as well.
Yes, I too have a slip and will leave the meeting and request a text to let me know when this item is over. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. All right, we will proceed. Julie, there's public comment, but I'll wait to take public comment until after you've presented the item, Julie.
Okay, thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting state of emergency and shelter-in-place orders have had a significant effect on people's ability to work and earn an income, making it challenging for many to cover rent and lease payments. This item has certain categories of users of district property, and I'll go through each of those categories and give the recommendation of what staff believes should be the outcome of this. So the first item in the motion is that we're asking the Harbor Commission to approve the general manager's action to waive penalties and late fees for rents and charges for services that become delinquent during the period of April 1st through June 30th of 2020, and to waive penalties and late fees on these delinquencies through June 30th, 2021. That would give a 12-month period for people to get caught up on their rents and charges for services. For non-essential businesses and essential businesses that have remained closed, to waive the requirement to find these leases and commercial activity permits in default due to delinquency of payments, which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and allow for the repayment of rents over a 12-month period or by June 30th, 2021. They would receive that same 12-month period to pay back delinquencies. In the alternative, the commission could consider waive the requirement to find leases and commercial activities and permits in default to delinquency of payments which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, and forgive either 25, 50, 75, or 100% for that same period. That would be approximately $39,000 for 100% forgiveness of 3 months of rent. We have polled various agencies and other port entities. The majority of people are allowing the deferral of rents, but very few are allowing the forgiveness or partial forgiveness of those rents. For berthers, which includes slip holders and mooring patrons, the recommendation is to also waive the requirement to lien vessels due to delinquent payments, which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and allow for repayment of rents over a 12-month period or by June 30th, 2021. In the alternative, the Harbor Commission could waive the requirement to lien the vessels due to delinquent payments which occurred and forgive 25, 50, 75, or 100% for that same period. This would cost the district approximately $816,000 for 100% forgiveness for 3 months of rent. For essential businesses that remain open, we recommend waiving requirement to terminate leases and commercial activity permits due to delinquent payments, which occurred during that same period, and allow a 12-month period to pay back the money. And the commission would have the same alternative to forgive percentages of rent. In addition, staff recommends that the rates and fee schedules as currently published remain the same, and that we forego the 3.3% inflation increase that was calculated for 2019, and to add, excuse me, add that 3.3% inflation increase to the 2020 calendar year to determine a 2-year inflationary increase to be implemented on July 1st, 2021. This calculation should not reduce the rates in the beginning of July 1st, 2020, but it could reduce the inflationary rate to 0%. Also, to defer lease payments associated with requirement to increase rents by the Consumer Price Index for 1 year and add to the 2020 CPI to determine the 2-year inflationary increase. And that calculation should not reduce base rents. Staff feels that the increase in rates and fee schedules and the increase in rents during this difficult time should be waived for this year. Lastly, the motion is to extend the annual launch ramp permits by the number of months that the launch ramp is closed. The district has received approximately 25 requests from lessees and berthers asking for forgiveness of rents. And as I said, most other governments are allowing for the deferral of rents, but not the forgiveness. There are 2 harbor districts, one to the south and one to the north, that have allowed certain lessees either a 50% reduction or 100% reduction of their lease payments, but nothing for berthers or slip holders. In addition, liveaboards are protected by the public health and safety. Well, unless necessary to protect public health and safety, an eviction case for residential or commercial liveaboards can't proceed during either California's state of emergency or 90 days after the emergency ends. And it doesn't matter if the eviction is COVID-19 related or not. That's just additional law. Berthers and transient charges for visiting boats would be included in the category of berthers. And annual charges for launch ramps would be equated to allowing for a 3-month longer than the expiration date period. And these are all to treat all of the people who use the district in a fair manner and not differentiate those that are having difficulties, because we want to make sure that we're treating everyone the same. And that's the summary of the proposals at this time. If you have any questions on that.
Great, we'll open this up for commissioner questions or comments. We have 3 commissioners online, Commissioner Chen, Crowley, Commissioner Brennan, and myself. Does anyone have a question or a comment or wish to make a motion on this item?
Do we have public comment? I think you said that, President Reiring.
I do.
Maybe we should listen to public comment first, if you don't mind. If the rest of the commission would like to do that, I'd love to get their perspective.
That's fine. We have caller whose phone number ends in 4082. You've been unmuted for comment.
Hi, my name is Carl Hilt. I'm currently a transient berth holder at Oyster Point Marina. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. Commissioners, I really want to thank you for modifying the position from being agenda item 11 and 12 to to 1 and 2. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Just to dive right in, I want to just comment on a couple things. Number one, deferral versus forgiveness. I understand and don't disagree with the moderator that government agencies are trying to do deferral rather than forgiveness. However, I just want to bring to the Commission's attention my previous experience and background. About 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and Bank of America tried to foreclose on my property while I was fighting for my life in the hospital. And so I've been through foreclosure at no fault of my own. To this day, I think it's fair to say that except for the time that I spent in the ICU fighting for my life, I've always been on time for all my financial obligations. I currently find myself and my family, which consists of my mother and my father, who my father just recently had traumatic brain injury, undergo some financial hardship as well as health hardship. And I respectfully do not feel that a deferral is going to solve the problem. What's going to end up happening with a deferral, commissioners, is that a bunch of boats are going to be foreclosed on, and there's going to be evictions at the end of a 12-month period because nobody's going to be able to afford to pay back, $5,000 or $6,000 in deferral rents. So forgiveness is really the only solution, whether it be 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%. I know it's a lot to ask, but I will tell you that in talking to a number of people in the harbor, if the commission decides to do anything less than 100% at this particular time, there's going to be a lot of vacancies and a lot of boats that are going to need to be left behind and dealt with at the expense of the harbor and the county, because nobody can afford their bills right now. Right now, people who are landlords who have worked their whole life to acquire properties are not receiving rents from their tenants, and there's no forgiveness, being taken into account by the government, the city, the county, or the state to help out landlords right now. So this is a real difficult time. It's a really difficult decision, and I really would like to ask that the commission really think long and hard before they consider anything but forgiveness in this particular situation, because it's really a matter of not being able to keep the boat in the harbor at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And Melanie, can I ask, Melanie can I ask, are you timing these comments?
Yes, nobody could hear the beep?
No.
Okay. I'm unsure why.
All right.
Okay.
We'll try again. Thank you very much. We have another.
President Reiring.
Yes.
This is Jim Pruitt. If I can remind you or ask if you can have Lizzy give the directions how to raise your hand for public comment. Just remind everybody on how to do that.
Okay, great. Yes. Before I do see the members of the public that have your hands raised, and I'll get right to you. I'm just going to ask Lizzy, our technical advisor, to give a reminder on how the public can raise a hand if they want to make a comment or if they have a question. Lizzy?
Public comments can be made by clicking on the raise hand button or by typing in the chat function on Zoom. To raise your hand, click on the participant icon at the bottom of the screen, and the raise hand button should appear there. If you're joining us by phone, dial *9 from your keypad, and the host will be notified that you would like to speak. Please note that written comments made via chat are visible to all meeting participants and become part of the public record. However, chat comments will not be read aloud. With that, I'll hand it back over to President Reiring.
Thank you very much, Lizzy. And I'll just also note that comments, we are limiting comments to 2 minutes each. So I'll go to the next member of the public. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. Your son's name is Timo, I believe.
Okay, hello, Samuel Sigu. Actually, this is one of the things that this is the reason why I was here tonight. You know, and one of the things that I wanted to remind you guys is I'm one of the people that absolutely make 100% of my income using your harbor as a commercial fisherman. I rely strictly, and this is one of the reasons why I've been in Half Moon Bay, is I rely on the dock sales for my my income. And unfortunately, since this has been shut down, so is dock sales. I moved it to another harbor, in the process of moving to another harbor temporarily. But I mean, I'm barely scraping along, picking and choosing which bills to pay each month at this point. So I do agree with the other gentleman that if anything less than forgiveness is considered, I mean, when I finally do get back to work, I'm going to have to work twice as hard, you know, to get some bills paid. So that's just kind of what I wanted to just reiterate, you know, that there are a lot of people in this harbor that rely on the harbor for 100% of their income. And if the harbor's not open, that means no money, $0. So.
Thank you for your comment. We have Carolyn Negarin. Have your hand up?
Yeah. Yes. It's Carolyn Jarin, but how are you? This is our first meeting with everyone, and thank you very much for taking my question. So we've been renting slip B16 since May 2019, and we were slated to have our boat completed and moved into the slip this May. It took forever, but our boatyard's been closed because of the pandemic. And Moss Landing, we have not been able to finish the boat. It's an economic hardship. We're just burning, you know, $500 every month. We would like to advocate for forgiveness. We do know that our slip's been empty and it's been rented for temporary boats. No problem with that. But we do think that taking care of the tenants who are also your neighbors will help each other to stay sustainable as a community and also in the harbor. That's all I got.
Thank you, Carolyn. We'll move to Patrick Donahue.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Donahoe. I'm a sport fisherman and I frequent Half Moon Bay Harbor quite a bit. And my concern is that we do not have access to the harbor when the other harbors on the coast have already opened. So I'm wondering what's the process to get Pillar Point and Oyster Point back opened up?
Thank you for your question. I think that's a little bit off topic, but I could ask our general manager, Jim Pruitt, do you care to address this at that question at this time, or should we keep moving forward with this agenda item?
Mr. Donahue, Donahoe, that's going to be discussed on the next agenda item, and a plan is going to be presented.
Thank you, Jim. So we have Bruce McPhillips. You have your hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Thank you very much. I'm the Commodore of the Oyster Point Yacht Club, and I do want to thank the Harbor Commission for bringing this to everybody, because it's very important for us. We've been a member of the Oyster Point community for 30 plus years, and we have tenants who work within our facility, and they provide catering and banquet facilities, and it looks like they may not open for the rest of the year. My question would be, we are not looking for a forgiveness. We are looking for deferral and to work with us and with our tenants, because we do provide a valuable service for Oyster Point. If this continues past July, will the Harbor District continue with this program?
Thank you for your question and your comment. I would have to.
I would recommend that we maybe bring an item back to the commission for further consideration if this continues to be an issue.
Thank you, Julie. We have Theodore Vecchioni. I haven't pronounced a name right tonight, but I'm giving it my best shot. Theodore Vecchioni, you have your hand raised.
No, thank you. You got it right. So hi, I'm Theo, and like Sam, I'm at Pillar Point. And first, I just want to thank you guys. It's really a treat to be able to participate online like this. So thank you for reaching out to the community and letting us join you for these meetings in such an easy fashion. I really appreciate it. I have a question on this item. It's a discussion of forbearance or forgiveness for monthly rents or leases. But what happens if you've already paid your lease? If you made choices and you decided to pay what was due every month, but maybe you didn't pay something else because you put the money in that direction. Is this only going to apply to people who have some sort of a accumulated debt, a back debt, or can this be retroactively applied to everybody? And if that's the case, I would advocate that everybody get treated fairly the same. Whatever you guys decide to do, I hope it applies to everybody, not just people who happen to have a bill right now. Again, thank you for letting us participate. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Theo. We have RCI.
I'm muted, looks like. Thank you. My name is Bob Ingalls. My wife, Sherry, and myself, we've had the Half Moon Bay Sport Fishing Shop as a leasee there for the last 14, 15 years. I also own and operate the Queen of Hearts charter boat for the last 30 years out of the harbor here. And I'll try to make it quick and sweet here. Any kind of deferment or waiver on any of the fees and late fees and all that would really be appreciated. As we all know, we all work very hard, as a couple other people already attested to, and make our living in doing this. And this is our sole way of making a living too. And we still keep 3 employees working. We've had 3 employees working this whole entire time. The Queen of Hearts hasn't let us slip. And kind of hard to make a living. You know, we're all kind of dying on the vine here, hoping things change. And I know that's not the harbor's fault here, or maybe it will be pretty soon. But a decision has been made. But any kind of deferment or waiver would be appreciated, and I'll drop it right there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Commissioner comments. I see Commissioner Brennan you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to try to go really fast since I only get 2 minutes. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate all the public comments. I hear everybody is definitely going through a really hard time right now. I move that we waive all delinquencies, forgive and refund all rent and slip fees for the time period that the Harbor District has been closed, and forego inflation increases CIP, extend launch ramp access to make up for the months that the launch ramp has been closed, and just trying to check and see if I missed anything here. And then bring this back later in the event that we need to extend the time period of forgiveness and refund for rent and slip fees beyond the time period that the district is closed. Can I get a second?
Is there a second for that motion?
Commissioner Ching, Crowley, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. So I appreciate the public's comment. I'm glad that we were able to get various viewpoints. I actually sit on the Finance Committee, and I know that this is a tough time for everybody, including the Harbor District itself, and all the tax money that goes, all the taxpayers who actually support this from all over the county. We've had to revise our budget downward, or we're looking in that direction. We've increased our reserves so that we can save for a rainy day and continuing to operate the district so that at least we can provide the basic services that, that our tenants and our visitors enjoy. I appreciate what Julie has done in terms of the analysis, and thank you for doing that, Julie. I know it's a lot of work, and I am actually willing to make a motion pretty much based on what you said, and I'm happy to read this out loud if y'all want, but it's to approve the general manager's action to waive penalties and late fees for rents and charges for services that became delinquent during the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and waive penalties and late fees on these delinquencies through June 30th, 2021. Number 2, for non-essential businesses and essential businesses that remained closed, waive requirement to find leases and commercial activity permits in default due to delinquency of payments which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and allow for repayment of rents over a 12-month period or by June 30th, 2021. Number 3, this is all in one motion, for berthers, slip holders, and mooring patrons, waive requirements to lien vessels due to delinquent payments which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and allow for repayment of rents over a 12-month period or by June 30th, 2021. 4, for essential businesses that remained open, waive requirements to terminate leases and commercial activity permits due to delinquent payments which occurred from the period of April 1st through June 30th, 2020, and allow for repayment for rents over a 12-month period or by June 30th, 2021. 5, approve the rates and fees schedules as currently published and forego the 3.3% inflation increase calculated for 2019, and add the 3.3% inflation increase to the 2020 calendar year increase to determine the 2-year inflationary increase to be implemented on July 1st, 2021. And this calculation will not or shall not reduce the rates. Number 6, defer lease terms associated with requirement to increase rents by the Consumer Price Index or CPI for 1 year, and to add the 2020 CPI to determine the 2-year inflationary increase. Again, this calculation shall not reduce the base rents. And number 7, extend annual launch ramp permits by the number of months that the launch ramp is closed. So that is my motion, and I think it's in line with many of our surrounding harbors. So President Reiring, that's my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen Crowley. I was reading Julie's agenda item along with you there as you went through them item by item. Julie, thank you for your work on this, and thank you to the public who are present tonight and making comments. I'm going to second your motion, Commissioner Chen Crowley, because of the bleak economic forecast in San Mateo County and concerns that I have about the way it's going to impact our budget and our ability to do our work. I'm seconding your motion. I see that Commissioner Brennan has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So I just wanted to comment that as we are all aware, most of our tenants are currently unemployed right now due to COVID-19, and all of the businesses maybe with the exception of one, which has been severely impacted, are currently closed. So we have tenants and we have slip holders who have not been able to conduct business at Pillar Point Harbor during the closure. I believe strongly that it is highly unethical for us to charge rent and to charge slip fees when our businesses, tenants, have not been able to conduct any business. And I can't support this motion because I do not believe it's right to charge people when they're out of work and when they can't even run their businesses and operate because the harbor's been closed. So for that reason, I have to vote no on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennan. We have a motion and a second. Oh, we have Commissioner Chen Crowley. You have another comment?
Oh, no. I
No,
was
that's
supposed to
left
bring,
over.
yeah.
All right,
thanks.
then Melanie, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas, Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
and Commissioner Matush.
Commissioner Lorenas and Commissioner Matush are recused from this matter. All right, so we have, I think we need to call back the motion carries, and we need to call back Commissioner Lorenas and Commissioner Matush, I believe. They, yes.
I'm doing that. I'm doing that now.
Great, thank you. And as soon as they're back, we will go to item number 12. I see Commissioner Matush is back. So we're just waiting for Commissioner Lorenas. Please let me know, anybody, if you see him.
Commissioner Lorenas acknowledged my text, and he'll be signing in shortly.
Okay, should we wait another minute? Wait a little bit here.
Unknown caller.
Jim, are you in contact with him?
He's letting me know the status now. He's signing in.
Great.
There he is. Let's wait for his audio to connect, is my recommendation.
Thank you, Jim. Welcome back, Commissioner Lorenas. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We're moving to item number 12, COVID-19 pandemic operational status and reopening. Mr. Morin.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. This is a motion to authorize the general manager to reopen Harbor District facilities once permitted under County of San Mateo and state orders. Currently, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, parking lots at both Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina are closed to the general public. Johnson Pier at Pillar Point Harbor is also closed to the general public. However, district has allowed full access for commercial fishers. The Pillar Point Harbor fuel dock has remained open and operational. Off the boat fish sales on Johnson Pier is not been permitted as Johnson Pier is closed to the public and all parking lots are closed to the public. Fishing piers at Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina are closed. Launch ramps at Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina are closed to the general public, but open to commercial fishers and emergency first responders. At both Oyster Point and Pillar Point, public restrooms are closed and portable toilets have been removed. The harbor master's offices are also closed. All business is being conducted over the phone, radio, and in open air while social distancing. A specialized cleaning service has been contracted to clean, sanitize common areas, and with board permission will continue for the foreseeable future. All essential district staff are required to wear face coverings and maintain social distancing as they carry out their duties. Non-essential staff are working remotely. It is staff's recommendation that the decision point to open the harbor and the marina will be related to the county's orders to shelter in place and access to coastal parking. Once these restrictions are lifted, the district needs to be prepared to reopen its facilities to the general public as soon as possible. It is expected that the state of California and the county of San Mateo will lift the shelter-in-place order in the coming weeks. Local businesses will begin to reopen, and the coastal access parking restrictions will be lifted. As a result, the district has established the attached operational plan to reopen Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina, not necessarily at the same time. The plan was drafted with the assumption that social distancing and face covering requirements will be continued. In accordance with county requirements, each business that reopens will be required to post their safety protocol. The most recent county health orders keeps in place the shelter in place order, but loosens recreational activity restrictions, more so east of Highway 1. It is apparent that the San Mateo County Chief Health Officer believes the risk is greater west of Highway 1, coast side. Therefore, if the board approves aforementioned motion to allow the general manager to open district facilities when he deems safe to do so in accordance with state and county health orders, the GM will allow Oyster Point Marina, which is east of Highway 1, parking lots, launch ramps, and public restrooms to reopen on Tuesday, May 26th in accordance with the district's Phase 2 reopening plan. Pillar Point Harbor, which is east of Highway 1, will continue in Phase 1 until the county deems safe to lift the following county health order restriction, and I begin a quote, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., all public access to parks, trails, and beaches west of Highway 1 must be initiated from one's residence and may not involve the use of a motor vehicle to travel to any such recreational area. The purpose of this limitation is to ameliorate the continued gathering and crowding in the parks, trails, and beaches near the coast, end quote. Regretfully, this restriction prevents the district from opening parking lots west of Highway 1 without encouraging people to violate the order, as use of a motor vehicle is prohibited to access recreational areas west of Highway 1. Even though the county health officer's office has responded to launch ramp use inquiries stating, and I again quote, the county's order does not require boat ramps to shut down. Commercial marinas may need to limit their operations and may have decided to shut boat ramps down for their own legitimate reasons, end quote. To access Pillar Point Harbor's boat ramp west of Highway 1, one would have to use a motor vehicle to tow the vessel, thus violating the aforementioned health order. The order does, for some reason, allow motor vehicle access between 5 p.m. and 11 a.m. But the district does not have the resources to open, close, and enforce access during specific times. Arguably, this would be near impossible as motor vehicles would be coming and going at all times of the day. Staff would have to interact with every vehicle to ensure they were authorized. Launch ramp users that were forced to park on Highway 1 or in the neighboring streets because our lot was full would be returning to pick up their boats during restricted times. As much as district staff would like to open as soon as possible, it is simply not feasible until deemed safe by the county to open parking lots without time restrictions. Staff recommends the board approve a aforementioned motion to authorize the general manager to reopen Harbor District facilities once permitted under County of San Mateo and state orders.
Oops, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Mr. Moore. And on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Brennan.
Like, we're going to be able to open up Oyster Point Marina, so that's great. But we aren't yet going to be opening Pillar Point Harbor due to concerns about crowding and the attraction of the Pacific Ocean. Is that accurate, John? I just want to make sure I got that.
Yes, that's accurate. Our phase 2 in our reopening plan that's attached does have restrictions with regard to how we're going to open. It's going to, like the launch ramps at Oyster Point, every other one will only be used. And we've already prepared the launch ramp area for where the pay machine is, and the fishing pier and other areas with painted areas to remind the public to social distance, and face coverings will also be required. So we'll have substantial signage, and staff will continue to monitor the entire property and remind people if we do observe anyone violating the social distancing or mask restrictions. And again, we'll be monitoring our soft opening, if you will, at Oyster Point. And should we need to, or should we observe substantial challenges, we might have to, the general manager might have to call for going back to phase 1 again.
Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So really quick, based on this issue, would it be possible for the district to look into a reservation system for the launch ramp that would help reduce the touch points so that people aren't touching a keypad, so that they can reserve their launch online? And that way we can prevent crowding at the launch ramp by having a reservation system. I've heard other places have done it. Just wondered if that's something staff could look into.
Yeah, we have. I think it's a great idea in theory, but it's really not feasible, and I don't believe it's been done successfully anywhere. That by nature, if I, for instance, were to, as someone that's a 100-ton captain and has used a launch ramp hundreds, if not thousands of times, when I believe I'm going to go fishing or go on an outing with my family or friends, I hook up my boat to my truck or my vehicle, and I hope that that everything's operable. But regretfully, many times they are not. Then, of course, I have to drive, to the ramp, and oftentimes there's a long line already. If I were to, by some way I don't understand, have a reservation, for 11 o'clock a.m., for instance, how would I get to the front of that line? And to get people to to show up exactly on time for a reservation, and to have others wait for that person to show up, it's a great idea, and we wish we could come up with something like that, and of course would consider it should somebody come up with a viable process or method to do so. But I do not see it realistic. Therefore, everybody showing up socially distancing, waiting in line just like they always do during busy times, and our staff trying to manage it the best we can, I believe will work. And again, staff have done a great job at already at both at Pillar Point in preparation for opening there, and at Oyster Point in painting stripes 6 feet away from each other by the pay machine. And again, we don't see an alternative to the pay machine other than what we considered, but felt it not necessary, frankly, of just giving free launch ramps, free launch ramp use. Using the pay machine in a safe manner, we'll be cleaning it. We'll be encouraging, of course, people to wash their hands after use. But it's very similar to, you know, to any time you stop to get gas and use the keypad at a gas station.
John, we can chat more about this later, but what I was thinking of was an app with a window of time, not a specific time. So let's talk about it offline later on. Thank you so much.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you. We have a member of the public who wants to make a comment. Kristlyn.
Hi. Thank you so very much, Crystalline, the president and CEO of the Half Moon Bay Coastside Chamber of Commerce. So related, unrelated, the parking lots being closed, it's my understanding is having an effect on commercial fishermen being able to sell fish off of the dock. And with the county reopening curbside pickup, I would like to advocate that the boats be allowed to do kind of a curbside pickup deal. And I would like to note that at last night's City of Half Moon Bay Council meeting, they had a long discussion about working with the county and the state to allow the reopening of the recreational and beach parking lots as soon as next weekend. So I think that's probably pertinent to your conversation now. But mainly I just wanted to advocate that there is a reopening plan for those commercial fishermen who rely on selling off of the dock. Thank you.
Oh, pardon me. I think I was muted. Patrick Donahoe, I see your hand raised.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Moran, thank you for the update. It's certainly good news to hear about the Oyster Point launch ramp opening in the following week. That is definitely good news. Should the San Mateo County Health Officer amend his latest order and allow truck and trailer or vehicle and trailer parking for specifically Pillar Point Harbor, would that make it possible to open the ramp earlier?
I can speak to the first comment and this Mr. Donahoe's comment as well. The district, you know, has and the general manager has met with the off the boat fish sellers that wanted to discuss options, and all we are preventing is the public from going out onto Johnson Pier. So if there was a viable plan, or if there still could be a viable curbside plan for you know, that meets all of the restrictions for selling fish directly to consumers, if they can, you know, if they could arrange or come up with a plan, again, the general manager would consider that. You know, if they can come up with a plan again that is viable for fish to be transported from the boat to another location other than Johnson Pier, we would entertain that. As far as the coastside parking lots being opened, we did a check ourselves and found that that for the same reasons I described, it's just not viable to open up parking lots, then close them midday, you know, because people are still going to be parked there when it's when 11 o'clock comes around. without some kind of towing or an officer being at every parking lot gate all day long. All the other coast-side parking areas west of Highway 1 appear to be continuing to be closed as well. As soon as that health officer or health order is revised, if the board chooses today to give the general manager discretion to reopen in accordance with the, it seems, fast-moving changes in these health orders, the general manager will take the opening of parking areas west of Highway 1 into consideration, and quite likely open up right away Pillar Point Harbor as well. And then Mr. Donahoe, we are continuing to try to adjust as quickly as possible to all of the changing health orders.
Thank you. Patrick Donahoe, have you finished your question? I see your hand is still raised.
Yeah, no, I wanted to comment that thank you, Commissioner Moran. That seems to be the only path forward right now, unless they completely go to a stage 2 in San Mateo County. But I'm working to try and see if we can get the health officer to amend the order just for truck and trailer parking west of Highway 1. So thank you very much, and hopefully this will come to fruition. Appreciate your
I'd like
time.
to assure the public that all the staff at Pillar Point Harbor and at Oyster Point Marina, of course, as well, and all district staff, including, I can speak for the general manager because I've been in multiple discussions with him. We all want to get everything open as quickly as we can, but it is an awesome responsibility to ensure that the public safety is, in fact, this is a serious illness for a lot of people, and public safety is paramount. And it is our responsibility to ensure that we are abiding by the health orders. We can't be in a position where it's brought to our attention later that somehow we were not. So we have to err on the side of being conservative.
Thank you.
And if I can build on John's comments, President Ryrie.
Yes, please go ahead, Jim.
So Mr. Donohue, just to follow up with what John was talking about, our biggest restriction right now is the parking. Pillar Point Harbor simply doesn't have the capacity. Even if we restrict it to truck and trailer only, there will be overflow. And what we're trying to prevent is the attraction and overflow parking into Princeton and El Granada. Until such time that the public parking on Highway 1 and the other areas are open back up that can absorb some of that parking that would go into the harbor, so that people can park their boats at least halfway safe, we won't be able to open the harbor back up until that time. So bottom line for us, or for my decision point and my recommendation to the board is we're going to wait for the county, the state, Highway 1, and the local jurisdictions to open up parking again. Then once that's done, we can move forward and open Pillar Point Harbor back up for off-the-boat sales and the boat ramps. And I do, to build on what the chamber said, Half Moon Bay City Council did meet last night. There was a strong desire to reopen public access to the coast side, to the parking lots and everything else. And that's been voiced to the county. And I believe the county is working on a plan that possibly will be reopening as early as next weekend, the parking.
Thank you, Jim. We have one more member of the public, and then I see Commissioner Matush, your hand is up as well. We'll first take the member of the public. Your phone number ends in 0809.
Hi, this is Doreen O'Connor.
Hi, Doreen, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for letting us be able to speak. I have been doing dock sales for over 15 years now. And I was just had already some guidelines down, meaning to maintain the social distancing by taping the 6 feet distancing with tape, meaning down at the boat, and for the customers to wear their face coverings as well as the fishermen, and only allowed 3 people at a time to come down. Also, I have plenty of hand sanitizer, always wear gloves, use a new set of gloves every time you handle somebody's fish, have somebody else handle the money. Also, I do a lot of reservations, meaning I would have the customers meet me at a certain time and only keep it to 3 customers down at the boat. This is essential. Fish is essential, and it's also the fisherman's living. And I am just hoping that you guys really take this into consideration. And like I said, we would maintain the social distancing. I would put the tape out for 6 feet distancing, make sure the customers are wearing their face coverings, along with the people that are selling the fish. Have plenty of hand sanitizer on hand. Wear gloves and new gloves each time that you handle the fish. Have somebody else handle the money, and post the safety health order rules, and also to follow all COVID-19 and San Mateo health and county rules. And
thank you. Thank you for your comment. Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you so much for your comment. I'm going to move on to, I'm going to intersperse some commissioner comments here with the public. We still have a number of hands raised. Commissioner Matush, you have your hand up.
I'd like to make a motion that we open Oyster Point Friday, allow people to have the Memorial Day weekend. And as part of the same motion, I'd like to see that the board support the general manager in opening Pillar Point Harbor when the parking ban on Highway 1 is lifted. And he would have that discretion immediately upon finding out that it was safe to do so.
Great. Do I have a second for that motion? I'll second that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen Crowley. Discussion? Commissioner Lorenas?
Thank you. I've got a couple of comments, and the most important one is that I can thank staff for doing the legwork on this. It's been difficult to get information, and it's been changing on a daily basis. And I don't expect the county to tell the district this is how you should open. So there's an element of interpretation of the rules that makes it difficult for our staff to make these decisions. I would, however, ask that when there is a change, such as the desire to open up a launch ramp, for example, west of our at Pillar Point, that it come back to the board for 2 reasons. One is to help with understanding and making clear the decision-making process that was used, but also to inform our public and give them an opportunity to speak and also understand the reasoning behind what we're doing. I've been asked by many members of the public why the launch ramp isn't open, and had to explain as best as I could under these changing circumstances what the reasoning was. And so it would be helpful for the public and I think it's part of our responsibility to be part of the decision-making process.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. We do have a couple more public comments. We have a motion and a second on the table, but Mr. Scott Matthews, would you like to make a comment?
Sure, yeah. Thank you guys for allowing me to comment. I just wanted to comment and find out why you guys have deemed it quote unquote impossible for you to open up the access to the launch ramp, given that it's only a single road going into Pillar Point. It seems like a single point access spot would be a simple enough area where you could screen and effectively turn those away that do not meet the requirements. For example, those that aren't trailering a boat. And then the second comment I had was, you have the RV lot closed, and there's basically 3 lots on that side. Are you guys taking into account using those spots as well in your decision to, limit the parking for us trailer boaters? Thank you.
Thank you. And RCI, you have your hand up?
Nope. Now I'm okay. You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a rookie at this. GPSs and sonars I know how to work very well. I would like to thank Tom Matush for his comments and his motion, but I would also like to have a little reminder to the commission that there are charter boats here too. And please don't forget the charter boats. It's kind of like they're lost in the background somehow. And for decades, they were the lifeblood of Pillar Point Harbor. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have someone online, phone number ending in 7191. You've been unmuted for
Yes,
comment.
Good evening, commissioners and council. My name is William Smith. I own the CPV Riptide, and I have to say, Mr. Ingalls just stole my thunder. I too am a party boat, and one of the things that has been talked about here is the commercial fishing and everything else other than the CPVs. I just wanted to make sure that I would reiterate basically the comments that Mr. Ingalls just made, that we have been an integral part of this community from the very beginning, and to also consider our customers and their needs as well in the parking and the allowance of us getting back to work. I support Mr. Pruitt's motion and also Tom Matush's motion as well. And with that, I will say thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. We have one more member of the public, and I have to ask you again to forgive me. I know I'm saying your son's name, Timo.
Yes, thank you. So again, I do agree with Bob, and I do agree with Captain Smitty. You know, the party boats, they need to get back to work also. They are also an essential business in the harbor in Half Moon Bay. One of the things that I did hear about the social distancing and having people down to your boat, or doing a drop off, a point of drop off to meet your customers. So I specialize in live fish. So on my boat, I have a tank of 50 to 80 fish swimming around. Customers walk into my boat, say, I want that one. I cannot do 80 runs up to a parking lot to hopefully find the perfect fish for the customer. So, you know, again, there are a lot of people that rely on this harbor to make their living. And, you know, we have to figure something out to not only make it easy for our customers to get to their product, but also for us to get them their product.
Thank you for your comment. I have to say, I really miss being able to buy fresh fish from you. We do have one more hand up, Frank. Frank, I think you are unmuted. No, you're not unmuted yet for comment. Frank?
Please accept the request to unmute your microphone. Maybe we can come back to this person.
All right, well, do have,
Oh, I'm
oh,
back.
there, okay, you're back.
I'm new at this too. So I wanted to make a point talking about the trailer parking, and I understand the county comes up with these really very strange rules, and they're constantly changing and extremely problematic, especially for anybody that happens to have a boat trailer. But the other problem, I talked to Jim about this earlier this week, and the history of boat trailer parking at the harbor has been problematic too. And there were times where the overflow parking would go off to a dirt lot, and now it's to the highway. And I'll say right now that for the harbor to expect people to park their boat trailers out on the highway, that's really something that is kind of unreasonable. So one question I have regarding this is, Jim had expressed that the RV parking will no longer be allowed in the parking lots that were designed for boat trailers. But my question is, the commercial crab pots that have been used up that space as well, is that something that will hopefully be moved to a different location and return those areas to boat trailer parking in the long run, and eventually try to come up with a plan so that people don't have to go to the highway? So, you know, that to me, I feel that this is something that should be looked at this time. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for your comment. If there are no further comments, Melanie, Tom, let's see, we have a motion and a second on the table. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Matush has his hand up right now. We'll take one final comment before the vote. Commissioner Matush.
One thing I've noticed is we can't open the harbor without opening the bathrooms. It's a daily occurrence where you walking down and seeing people just using the coastal trail or something else as a restroom. The trailer parking going out on the highway, every launch ramp that is opened has been inundated with boats and traffic and severe problems. So I urge the people that are on this call and watching to further contact the county, do as much help for the Harbor District as we could possibly use. We've got to get their approval, and the Harbor District is on your side. I would not support having another meeting. I believe that the general manager, once he makes the announcement, it goes across our website. I'm sure it'll be picked up in general media. There are people that will be ready to go almost instantly. So with that, I'd like to call for the question.
Terrific. Melanie, can you take roll call on this, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
She left the meeting.
Oh, Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas?
No.
Commissioner Reiring?
Aye.
Commissioner Matush?
Aye.
Great, the motion carries, and I do need to make a comment on our previous agenda item number 11. Sabrina Brennan, Commissioner Brennan made a motion and it failed for lack of a second. We need to put that in the record. I'm sorry, Melanie, I left that out of my comments. All right, so now we will be moving on to the 11 and 12 were the two discussion items we moved to the beginning of the agenda. We'll now be reviewing the scope and duties of the Human Relations Committee. This is my agenda item. The Human Relations Committee was formed at our last board meeting in April and is composed of myself and Commissioner Chen Crowley. We met on May 20th and we recommended the following scope and duties for this committee: to create values-based systems and policies to ensure that the Harbor District is following local, state, and federal laws, as well as best practices relating to its employees and commissioners, and to ensure the district is creating an attractive environment for current and prospective employees. Do we have any comment or discussion on that, or do I have a motion? Commissioner Chen Crowley.
I will make a motion to approve the scope and duties of the newly formed HR committee, which is now a standing committee.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Lorenas.
I have a question, not a second.
Okay.
Do you want to wait for a second?
Yes,
second.
thank you. Commissioner Matush, you've made a second. So Commissioner Lorenas, you have a question?
Yes, on the text of the document, where it says to create value-based systems. Excuse me. What does values-based system mean? Is that a term of art? If it is, then maybe it should use a simpler language. If it's not.
Does anyone have a response for Commissioner Lorenas?
I'm asking whoever wrote the document, so since I'm not on that committee.
Yeah, we sort of crafted that during the meeting. Values-based system. Values typically mean a regard in which something is held, and importance or worth, usefulness.
Might be a good idea to just clarify that a little bit, because systems is also a confusing word. So it seems like to create policies based on values, that would be a much easier language. So that's my comment on this. And then also I'd like to point out that the job of committees is not to create these things, but it's to make recommendations. And so really that statement should say to create recommendations or develop recommendations, something like that, to make it clear to the public and to us that the role of the committee is to discuss these items and bring to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. Commissioner Chen Crowley, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm just trying. So Ed, thanks for bringing those points up. I agree that, that we need to change the language probably from developing or creating policies to developing recommendations, but also policies can come from the committees. But again, it's a recommendation. I know that other committees have done that. So that's one thing that I want to touch on. The other thing is I'm happy to just take out, create values-based systems. I'm happy to take that out so that it reads, and even basically to create or to develop policies and recommendations to ensure that the Harbor District is following local, state, and federal laws, as well as best practices relating to its employees and commissioners, and to ensure the district is creating an attractive environment for current and prospective employees. Because I agree that values-based system may be too subjective. So I don't know what the chair of the HR committee thinks about that, or what the board thinks, but maybe would you be okay, Ed, if we just said to develop and recommend policies to ensure and to ensure that the Harbor District is following local, state, and federal laws, et cetera?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually a very good recommendation.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Nancy, or President Reiring? You are the chair of that committee.
That works for me. Thank you for your comments, both of you.
So Melanie, let me, I don't know if she's writing this down, Melanie, but it's basically to develop and oh God, I can't even remember what I said.
She can take it off the tape.
Can you,
it's fine.
okay, Melanie, can you just read it back to me if you have it handy, please?
I do not have it.
Okay. Basically, it's to develop policies and recommendations, and to ensure that the Harbor District is following local, state, and federal laws, etc. We're basically removing create value.
I think what I'd like to see happen is when we craft this motion, can we craft it according to the really well said statement you first made? Melanie could go back and look at, re-listen to your wording there. I think would be the most productive, if that's all right. Yes. Commissioner Brennan, you have a comment?
Yeah, I would like the motion restated clearly so we know what we're voting on, number one. And number two, I suggest using language to the effect of make policy recommendations, because the rules for committees for our district explicitly say that committees cannot make policies. All committees can do is make recommendations to the board for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I believe Commissioner Chen Crowley, you made that change in your, the way you worded your recommendation. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if it's not clear, that was my intent, Sabrina. I don't know if you can hear me, but I agree that we can't make policy, that we can make recommendations.
Right. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the table according to the wording that we all heard. Commissioner Brennan.
I asked to have the motion restated because I don't remember what was initially said, and I want to understand what we are voting on before I vote for it. I'm not going to vote for something when I don't even know what the motion is. So if somebody could just restate it, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. President Reiring, I can do that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
The motion made by Commissioner Chen Crowley was to develop policy and make recommendations, make recommendations to ensure the Harbor District is following local, state, and federal law, as well as best practices relating to its employees and commissioners, and to ensure the district is creating an attractive environment for current and prospective employees. Did I say that correctly, Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Jim, for getting that down. Melanie, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring?
Aye.
Commissioner Matush?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. We're moving to agenda discussion item number 9. Human Relations Committee, I'm sorry. Yes, number 9, Human Relations Committee Report and Recommendation on Policy 1.1.1. Discuss and consider recommendations to the Board of Harbor Commissioners to adopt the revision to Policy 1.1.1, San Mateo County Harbor District Ethics and Values. This policy is an update to the district's current policy 1.1.1, which was developed in 1999 by the City of Santa Clara and the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics. It has been updated since then, and this policy has been on the agenda for almost a year, and it's an update to where we left things in November. Staff has compared our current policy with CSDA sample policies revised in 2017 and other revised draft policy amendments recommended by the California Special Districts Association. It includes a definition of district representatives that include commissioners, staff, volunteers, and committee members. The policy being considered is substantially the same as the draft policy presented to the board on November 20th, 2019. The committee made recommended changes to the draft policy, and attached online is both a red line draft and a clean copy of the draft policy. Upon approval of the policy, staff will create posters and laminate them. And at this time, we'll open it up to discussion. Commissioner Chen Crowley? Commissioner Chen Crowley, I see your hand up. Can you hear me?
Yes,
You can
sorry, I
unmute.
had to unmute myself, sorry. I just would like to make a motion to approve policy 1.1.1, San Mateo County Harbor District Ethics and Value, including any proposed revisions if applicable. But basically, I just want to put the motion on the table so we can move forward with the discussion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Matush?
Aye,
You're seconding the motion?
that's correct.
Thank
Second.
you. So we have a motion and a second on the table. Commissioner Lorenas?
I have several comments for this. So let's start with under the statement of policy. I'm looking at the red line version of this because it shows how the changes evolved. So let's see. The beginning sentence says the Harbor District's designed its code of ethics and values, that it moves on from there. Seems to me it'd be better served to have a declarative statement rather than design, because it really wasn't designed. It should, in my view, say something to the effect of the Harbor District's Code of Ethics and Values provides.
Mm-hmm. Great. Are you making, Melanie, are you following these and making notes as we go?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then can I proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. In the red line version of this, we have that it was in blue in my copy, and it was the paragraph that stated the Code of Ethics Values was developed by 1999, and it references the Center for Applied Ethics of Santa Clara University, from which the basis of this document evolved. Instead of removing that reference, it seems a better way to deal with it is to put it down as a reference at the bottom somewhere, so that folks realize that, and we give credit to the folks that did all the work initially.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be great. In the red line verse, should I continue?
Please.
In the red line version, under goals and codes of ethics, 1.1, the second bullet, to make the Harbor District a better public agency. Definitely like better than stronger, if you don't pardon the pun, but it seems that effective public agency might be a better language.
Mm-hmm.
Again, pardon the pun.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
Please, these are good comments.
I'm having a little difficulty reading the next bullet red line version. So let me go to the,
Hey, Ed,
yeah.
do you mind just I'm trying to follow you. In
Yeah.
the motion. I've got it on here, but if you wouldn't mind just reading this section so I can follow you as well. These changes that you're suggesting are really great. So I just want to make sure we've got those.
I'm on section 1.1, goals of the Code of Ethics and Values.
Okay, thank you.
Third bullet down, it starts off to promote and maintain the highest standards of personal and professional conduct among all involved. in district government, including harbor commissioners, and then it has a list of folks. Whenever you make a list like this, you're at risk of forgetting something. So it seems to me you may want to write including but not limited to.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And I found the phrase among all involved a little bit awkward, but I don't have a ready-made sentence for you.
Which sentence is that you find awkward?
Let's see if I can find it again. It's the third bullet. To promote and maintain the highest standards of personal and professional conduct among all involved in district government. That sentence is, I find it very awkward, and not sure it's clear.
Commissioner Chen, Crowley, do you see that bullet that he's talking about? Oh yeah, I see it under 1.1. Among all involved in district government, including district staff, volunteers, and members of the district committee, herein referred to as district, and that's the list that you didn't want to be, excuse me, exhaustive. Is that right?
Well, you
didn't want to limit it.
I'm saying that it might be useful to add that qualifier.
Yeah. Okay, great. Are those your comments, or do you have more?
I can keep going.
Well,
so let's see. There's a chart where so below the chart, the sentence starts off, the code is a touchstone for members of the Board of Commissioners. The word that bothers me is touchstone. That's not always clear, especially if you're a non-native English speaker. It might be useful to say something like the Code of Ethics is a guide.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Great.
If you want, I don't want to take up everyone's time, so you may want to get Sabrina's comments. I have more.
Sure. Why don't you make notes while we move on and ask for Commissioner Brennan's comments as well?
I'm happy to wait until Ed's kind of in a flow, so I don't want to interrupt that. It'd be easier for me to think about this in terms of not being redundant and letting him finish first. Thank you.
Let me get down to my notes. I have them on my computer. It's a little awkward because I'm used to working with paper.
Yeah.
And I've got to kind of bounce back and forth.
We feel your pain.
Hey, Nancy, I agree with Sabrina. Let's just let Ed finish his edits because it's already confusing as it is with the document in terms of scrolling down.
We're letting him go through this here.
So Ed, just a friendly reminder to please let me know what page and section you're on. Well, yeah, so I can follow you.
I can't tell you what page I'm on because
yeah, the page numbers aren't there.
Right. And so I'm on 1.2 preamble.
Okay.
This is a very long paragraph for something like this. So that was my comment, and it would take us time to actually move this to a smaller, more concise language. So I don't think we should do it at this meeting. And my recommendation for future for things like this is to allow us all to sit together as a special meeting to go through these, so the public doesn't have to listen to me go through all of these kinds of edits, because it does take time. I think I'll stop with this for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. Commissioner Brennan?
Okay, well, I would just like to say that I agree with the edits that Ed made so far, but there are many pages left in this document that have just as many problems. So I can go through the whole document, but it seems like this is not the most effective way to wordsmith something. And I would agree with Ed that going forward, when we're going to be developing policy documents like this or doing heavy revisions on a previous policy document, that we do it during a special meeting and we get the public more involved. I do see that we have written comments that are being published on Zoom where people are speaking out that this is confusing and that they'd like the notes from the committee meeting and so forth. So I think that gets back to Ed's point about having a special meeting to properly draft policy documents so that we all get them wordsmithed correctly. So if you want me to go through the whole thing, I will, but that seems to be not very effective and it would take a long time. If we aren't going to make all of the changes that need to be made, I'm going to vote no on this document. And I would hope that we would get these changes, all the changes that need to be made, done eventually. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I'm open to suggestions about how to resolve this problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen Crowley?
The document as it is before Commissioner Lorenas' very good edits was pretty much the document that was originally presented back in July of 2019. So there are only a few areas that have been added, and I appreciate Commissioner Lorenas' additions and edits. I think that they're very good, and I think that they make a lot of sense. So I made the motion to do this. I'd like to call for the question to vote on this with Commissioner Lorenas' changes. This document has been around for a long time, and as President Reiring has said, the document has not really changed that much. So the few areas that have been redlined, which is probably a handful, those are not unburdensome to read. So I'd like to call for the question with Commissioner Lorenas' edits. So actually, let me make. I think I probably need to amend my motion now to approve and adopt the HR committee's scope and policies with the edits, the wonderful edits of Commissioner Lorenas. So I think Tom seconded the motion. I don't know if anyone wants to second that.
Do we have a second for that motion? Commissioner Lorenas?
Are you asking for a second, or are you asking?
I'm asking for a second. Yeah, I'm asking for a second. Your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm not going to second this for reasons I can get to when my hand is called.
Okay, Commissioner Matush.
I'd like to second this motion. It's basically a rewrite of what we had before. If people feel strongly about it, we can come back and have some suggested edits presented, and we can look at this. But at some point, we've got to move forward and show a little progress.
Okay, thank you. So we're, I think, Melanie, the question has been called. We have a new motion and a second. Can you take roll call, please?
Well, we're taking roll call for the calling of the question.
we're taking roll call for the calling of the question. Melanie, thank you. Commissioner Chen Crowley.
Commissioner Ryrie,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas.
No.
Okay, so there's a call for the question for my amended motion, and there's a second for that, which is basically to approve the HR policies, to approve and adopt the HR policies and scope based on Commissioner Lorenas's edits.
So do we have a second for that?
Yeah, Tom made the second.
Oh, he made the second. So
President
Melanie,
Reiring, President Reiring,
Yes.
may I clarify?
Yes,
Are
Jim.
we voting on policy 1.1.1 right now?
That's
Yes.
correct. With and the motion was to include the suggested
I'm
edits
sorry.
that Commissioner Lorenas, did you say something different, Commissioner?
No,
Chen
you know what?
Crowley?
I'm sorry. Yes, I was on the wrong policy. It's to approve and adopt policy 1.1.1, the code of ethics and values, not the scope of the HR committee. So my motion, I'm so sorry, Jim, thank you, is to vote to approve the ethics, the HR's recommendation of the code of ethics and values, code number 1.1.1.
So, all right, so we have that motion. Do we need to confirm the second again, Jim, or are we good?
And that's with Ed's edits too.
Right. I just
Tom,
need to
so
know
that
if we
was
need
my
a second.
motion. You seconded, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry.
I'll defer to general counsel, but I believe you do.
I think I need a new second, I think.
Might as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Commissioner Matush.
I will second.
Thank you. So the question has been called for this second motion. Melanie, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas,
No. No, excuse me.
Commissioner Ryrie,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley.
Aye.
So the motion passes. And I want to make sure I'm getting to the proper agenda item next. We have completed 11, 12, 9, I'm sorry, 8, 11, 12,
8 and
8
9.
and 9, and we're on number 10.
So, but I still had my hand up for,
Oh,
and you all
Commis-
voted before I had a chance to speak.
oh, the question had been called, but Commissioner Lorenas, you have something to say right now?
A couple things. Maybe I don't understand the process since it's been a little confusing. My understanding was that you call the question and then you allow discussion. I did stop editing because I had lots of edits and we'd be here all night. So I pointed out that it would be best to do this at a special meeting. So my comment is that the reason I voted no is because I have lots of edits, but also issues with some of the additions that were done. So this has been already passed. So now so my comments are just for the record at this point, it sounds like, right?
Right.
Okay, so for the record, some of the additions in this really, to me, smack of McCarthyism. You know, this concept of censure, and I think we're going to get back to there's some more of this coming up in our next agenda item, but in a democratic process, and I'm going to urge all of you as you think through some of these policies that you've worked so hard on, to remember that you're trying to write a document that supports a democratic process. And what I see before me is something that is not really democratic. And I can give you details if you want.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. Commissioner Brennan, we're really done with this agenda item. I think we're going to be moving on to discussion item number 10, policy 3.5, Human Relations Committee report and recommendation. This policy is intended to be complementary to policy 1.1.1, the policy we just reviewed. But while policy 1.1.1 is applicable to all district staff and commissioners, this policy 3.5 builds upon it and is only applicable to commissioners and appointed officials. Our board is a critical body that works to ensure the proper management and fiscal accountability of the district. This policy 3.5, if adopted, will help ensure that all elected and appointed officials, while exercising their office, conduct themselves in a manner that will instill public confidence and trust in the fair operation and integrity of the San Mateo County Harbor District. It is designed to describe the manner in which board members should treat one another, district staff, constituents, and others they come into contact with in representing the district. As elected representatives of the citizens of San Mateo County, it is essential that each commissioner's behavior be consistent with the level of responsibilities and duties of governance entrusted to them by the people of San Mateo County. The constant and consistent theme throughout the draft code of conduct is respect. Commissioners can experience tremendous stress in making decisions that can impact many lives. Despite these pressures, elected officials are called upon to exhibit appropriate behavior at all times. Demonstrating respect for each individual through words and actions is the, sorry about this word, Ed, touchstone that can help guide commissioners to do the right thing, even in the most difficult situation. Draft Policy 3.5 was drafted taking into consideration Robert's Rules of Order and similar policies located throughout the California Special District Association, among others. After discussion and consideration of public comment provided during the committee meeting, the Committee on Human Relations wishes to report and make the following motion: that the Board of Harbor Commissioners adopt Policy 3.5, Code of Conduct for elected and appointed officials. Discussion. Commissioner Chen Crowley.
I'll actually make the motion to adopt policy 3.5, which is a new policy entitled Code of Conduct for elected and appointed officials.
Do I have a second for this motion? Commissioner Matush.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennan, I see you have your hand up.
Actually, my hand is up from the last item, the last agenda item, which was policy number 1.1.1. That was item 9, and I'd like to finish as a point of order. Robert's Rules was not followed during the last agenda item, and I should have been allowed to make my second comment because I had my hand up before the question was called. So Robert's Rules were not followed correctly, and I would ask that the chair please follow Robert's Rules as she said she would at the beginning of the meeting. Furthermore, I'd like to add that I agree with Ed's comments, and he mentioned McCarthyism, and I would say that's pretty right on. I'd also like to expand on that and say that I would even apply that to this policy 3.5. It is a McCarthy era policy. It's un-American and it's undemocratic, and I won't be voting to support it. I'd be happy to go through it page by page and all the issues with it, but this is not the appropriate time to do that. We should be doing that during a special meeting when we can write good policy. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Reiring?
Aye.
Commissioner Matush?
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Lorenas?
No.
Thank you. The motion carries. And we move on to discussion item number 13, policy 6.5.11, leave policy during pandemic. Julie, this is your item.
Yes, thank you. On April 2nd of this year, the Harbor Commission approved policy 6.5.11 regarding leaves during the pandemic. On a weekly basis, management has been meeting with the OE3 shop stewards to discuss policies and issues as they continue. They requested that the district allow employees to cash in more PTO to help with families whose significant others may have been laid off from their jobs. The policy proposed revisions allows an employee to cash out an additional 160 hours or 320 hours through December 31st, 2020. It would require that an employee keep 40 hours in their PTO bank. Management supports this request, and there are sufficient budgetary savings this fiscal year for about 50% of all employees to cash in 80 hours. Preliminary polling of employees indicate that it would be closer to 20% of employees that would wish to cash in additional PTO. Employees have earned this benefit, and this benefit is recorded as a liability currently in the district's balance sheet.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. Is there any discussion on this item? Commissioner Lorenas.
I have a question. Can staff give me an idea of what our employees feel about this particular item? Are they happy with the concept? Do they feel it's fair? Have you had discussions with them?
This was actually proposed by some of our employees as a method to help people that may be financially strapped because of loss of work from significant others that may have been helping them meet their obligations. All district staff, as you know, it continues to be employed and works for the district. And so this is kind of a stopgap, and it is embraced by the employees.
That's kind of how I saw it, but I wanted to make sure that that they felt that way too. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. Commissioner Chen Crowley, you have a comment? You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I'll move to approve the revision to 6.5.11, the leave policy during the pandemic.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Commissioner Brennan, you have a comment?
I was going to make a motion to approve, and that's already been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie, roll call.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring.
Aye. The motion carries. And we move to discussion item number 14, policy 6.1.15, telecommuting policy. This has my name on it, but it's actually also Julie's item. Julie.
Thank you again. Policy 6.1.15 is a new policy for the district. It's a telecommuting policy. The language is from the CSDA policy templates and has been adjusted to include the unique situations that have been caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This policy allows for managers to authorize employees to telecommute, defines the employee rules for telecommuting, including work schedule, requirements for work areas, reimbursement for use of personal resources, which is estimated to be $3 per day for a cell phone and $1.50 per day for use of the internet. All administrative employees have a district provided laptop computer. And in the case that an operations employee works from home, there are a couple laptops that can be checked out. The estimated total reimbursement cost to employees is $3,000, and that is a requirement by California Labor Code 2802. The attached draft has been presented to the OE3 and Teamsters Union stewards, and they're all on board with this. There's also a checklist for the safety of the employees' working environments.
Thank you for preparing this, Julie. Do we have any discussion, or I see Commissioner Chen Crowley, your hand is up?
I'll move to approve 6.1.15, the telecommuting policy. And
Great.
thank you, Julie, for all your work on this with staff.
Commissioner Brennan, I see your hand is up.
I'll second.
Thank you. Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley.
Aye.
The motion carries. We're going to move to discussion item number 15, policy 6.2.5, sexual and unlawful harassment policy. Jim Pruitt, this is your agenda item, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Policy 3.2.5 is a revision of our previous policy. And on May 8th, the Human Relations Committee reviewed and approved the draft of the sexual and unlawful harassment policy, policy number 3.2.5, for full board consideration. In developing this policy, input from both Ogletree Law Firm and the RWG Law was considered and incorporated. This draft policy is significantly different from the draft policy previously provided the board in November of 2019. It does contain all legal requirements required by state law. Some of the substantial changes from the previous draft include: in coverage, limited the applicability of the policy to those individuals the district has jurisdiction over: employees, volunteers, interns, contractors through contracts. It removed applicants, customers, constituents, contingent workers, candidates, suppliers, and vendors, those who we don't have jurisdiction over. It added the term abusive conduct as defined by state law to the policy as prohibited conduct. It limited the required investigation status update requirement to update the complainant and the alleged perpetrator to whether investigation is ongoing or not, or it's been completed and is being it's been completed, and only the complainant would be notified of the status of the investigation. It removed the paragraph that permitted the person making the allegation and the subject of the investigation to submit rebuttals to the closed investigation. Significantly reduced the prior suggested annual reporting requirement with the intent to protect the privacy of the parties involved, while giving commissioners information on the number and type of investigations and allegations that have been, or complaints that have been made throughout the year. The suggested requirement to have a panel process was also removed. There is no legal requirement to have a panel process. The potential of a panel influencing an investigation is substantial, thus removing the independence of the investigator. The investigator has a strong potential to remove that independence of the investigator. The investigator already has the ability to seek assistance in conducting the investigation where he or she may need that assistance. And if I can ask Rebecca Green if I missed anything on my explanation of that policy from RWG Law. If you could raise your hand.
Rebecca, are you online here?
Can you unmute?
Rebecca Green has been unmuted for comment.
Thank you. Rebecca, do you have anything to add?
No, Jim, I think you did a great job of explaining why the policy is in its current form.
Great.
If you can stand by for questions, please, from the members.
Of course.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chen Crowley, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to, oh, hold on. To eliminate the current policy 6.2.5 harassment, discrimination, retaliation prevention, and adopt and replace the current policy with policy 6.2.5 sexual and unlawful harassment policy.
Great. Do I have a second for this? Commissioner Matush?
Second.
Thank you. We'll move to discussion. Commissioner Brennan?
Yes. While I strongly supported the policy, the sexual harassment policy that was presented to the board in 2019, but the board majority, Commissioner Reiring, Matush, and Chen Crowley refused to hear the policy at that time in 2019. I cannot support this revision. Everything that protects victims has essentially been stripped out. It is not commiserate with the sexual harassment policies of our state legislature. And by removing a panel, essentially one person has been made judge and jury. And we have seen time and time again with this special district that leads to an extremely flawed investigation process and report, and it's not fair to anyone. So for many reasons, including the removal of Section F on reporting and tracking, and getting Section 5 on findings, there's absolutely no way that I could support this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lorenas?
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Thank you. Well, I support what Sabrina's comments were, but I would like to also add, and I've said this many times before, that it's really important to have a strong document like this. I do appreciate the work that's gone into it, both last year and the work that's been done this year. And I'd like one of the attorneys, maybe Rebecca, to comment on my characterization of this, especially if I don't have it right. But the way I see it is that both from the point of view of a victim making an accusation and the accused, the way I look at this is, if this were to happen to me, if I was accused or if I was the accuser, I would be very concerned that one individual is acting as an investigator. So they choose what to investigate. They make a decision of what's relevant to investigate, and they do it completely unilaterally. While it sounds great that it's independent, it may or may not be. And there's, the way this is set up, there's no oversight. So we have one person who is doing the investigating. The investigator then shifts their role from investigator essentially to a judge, because they take their findings and they make a judgment and then write a recommendation. And so we have investigator, judge, and also jury in one person. And so if I was an accused, I would be very concerned about this, because if the investigator, for whatever reason, didn't do their work properly, there's nothing I can do. Now, of course, if I was a person of financial means, I could hire an attorney and spend my disposable income on fighting what I thought was an injustice. But for the average person, there's no way that they can find justice if they feel wronged. And so removing even just the fact that you've removed the right for the person to provide a counter argument to the documents, it's, to me, that's, I don't understand the reasoning for it, and maybe the lawyers can explain that to me, but that seems outrageous.
Commissioner Lorenas, your 2 minutes is up. Would you, Rebecca Green, do you care to respond to any of Commissioner Lorenas' questions?
I'm happy to. I'm not exactly sure what the questions were, so I'm going to maybe rephrase it, and then Commissioner Lorenas, if I'm not getting your question right, let me know. So is the question why one investigator is sufficient to accomplish this process rather than having a panel or levels of oversight? Is that your question?
It's close. Oh, I'm muted.
No, you're not.
I'm not? Okay, sorry. I guess I would turn that question around. To me, it seems on its face not fair to either the accused or the accuser to have one individual do all of this, and then without providing any means of rebuttal. So why is a three-member panel, which, by the way, that's where the state legislature is moving on this kind of issue. Why is that not a more democratic and a more egalitarian way to deal with something like this?
So I think maybe we're disagreeing on what the role of the investigator is. So the investigator is not a decision maker and is not going to adjudicate any or come up with any final outcome. The investigator is just finding facts. And so the recourse, if the person accused does not agree with the factual findings, the recourse would be to appeal any discipline that's imposed on that person. And I don't know what the district's internal appeal process is, or if one exists, but that would generally be the recourse if they don't agree. If the person bringing the complaint does not agree with the findings, presumably that would mean that the investigator found that nothing unlawful happened, and then the recourse for the person bringing the complaint would be to then file a complaint either at the administrative or the judicial level.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, and let me rephrase that. I think I understand what you're saying. When I've read these the reports from investigators, one of the phrases they like to use is more likely than not, this happened. And to me, that seems to be a judgment. Isn't that right? In their judgment based on their investigation, more likely than not, this happened or this didn't happen. So to me, the way I read that is they are adjudicating the information, and the district now is left with what to do with that more likely than not statement. The way I've seen it used in the past is that is a finding. In other words, it was the data, if you will, was gathered and a decision about that data was made. And that's normally the work of a jury, or in some cases a judge, as I understand it. Is that right?
Sorry, so I think there were a couple of questions in there. So I guess starting with the more likely than not, that's an evidentiary standard. So the investigator is then telling the board there is at least a 51% chance that this occurred or did not occur. The board is then making the decision as to what to do with that information. So maybe we're just using words differently.
No, you're helping. I think what's missing in this scenario, at least is from what I see before me in this document, is a process by which the board decides what to do with that information. I don't see it in this document. So maybe that's a question for the committee that drafted this. What happens with this information?
Rebecca?
Oh, sorry. Did you want me to answer that?
I think you're the person that can answer that most concisely.
Sure. Well, the board would make a decision as to whether they were going to accept the factual findings of the investigator. And then, you know, whether, so it says, and I'm looking at section D, paragraph 3, under findings, if it is determined that a violation of policy occurred, appropriate remedial measures will be taken up to including termination or a request for resignation. So it's up to the board to take action based on the findings of the investigation. The investigator doesn't decide the kind of what happens next. The investigator just presents facts to the board.
Well, I understand that they do present facts, and maybe we are doing a little bit of semantic work, but for a document like this, to me, it's really important to make it very clear. And my objection to the single investigator is that when they make that statement that you're calling evidentiary statement, but more likely than not, that's a value judgment based on their data, on the data that they acquired. They are taking all the evidence that they acquired and making a statement of their belief of what that means. And that's why I have a problem with it with respect to one person making that decision. And furthermore, the other problem I have with it is that, and I've seen this in these investigations that happened, is that they, because they're the investigators, they decide where to look, who to ask questions to, and there's no process by which that can change. They make those decisions unilaterally.
Well, I think that's why, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you can respond. I was just going to note that Commissioner Lorenas' 2 minutes is up, but go ahead and you can respond, Rebecca Green.
Okay, I mean, I think if your point, Commissioner Lorenas, is that sometimes investigations are imperfect, I agree with you. I think anybody would agree that any fact-finding process can be flawed. And that's why it's important to select an investigator who has the experience, the credentials, the integrity, you know, who is going to uphold this process and not let personal bias come in, somebody who has experience determining credibility, who knows what questions to ask, what documents to look at, what people to interview. Can one investigator make a mistake? Absolutely. Can 3 investigators working together make a mistake? Yes. Can 10 make a mistake? Yes. So having one investigator is standard. I know that the state legislature has implemented a panel system. That's very, very uncommon. In fact, I can't think of another public agency in California that has a panel system. And so I think for, I mean, you know, for cities, for counties, that's just not how it works. This is, yeah, I don't know what else to say other than this is pretty standard, and I don't see that adding more investigators to the process is going to increase the integrity of the process or the findings.
Thank you, Rebecca Green. We have 2 more hands up. Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you. I can speak from personal experience. For the last 2 decades, the Harbor District's sexual harassment and retaliation investigations have not had any integrity. They haven't been fair or just. And I don't think that this policy, based on what I read, is going to improve things whatsoever. So it's a sad day for the district. I think we were very close to making some really meaningful changes, and unfortunately that's not happening this evening. So it is disappointing. I'd also like to mention that when someone has the power to make findings in an investigation, they are essentially the judge of the investigation. And our district has no appeal process whatsoever. I'd also like to mention that in my case, with my sexual harassment, retaliation, and sexual orientation harassment complaint against Commissioner Tom Matush, that in fact, that investigation process was incredibly flawed, and the board never adopted the findings of the investigation. So those findings to this day still have not been adopted by the board. I know that the findings were used in a DFEH complaint. They should not have been used by you, Rebecca, in a DFEH complaint because they were never approved by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. John Ullum, you have your hand up.
Thanks. Is my iPod working?
I hear you.
Good deal. To speak to what Commissioner Lorenas was talking about, in the previous investigation, the investigator, the last one happened, the investigator pointed out that Tom Matush had sent the pornography to 41 other people, and that one of them also appeared to be a female. And the investigator made the conclusion that that meant something, that somehow that was exculpatory, I think I'm saying that right, of the action of sending out the emails with pornography to Sabrina Brennan. The other thing that the investigator assumed to be true was Commissioner Matush's assertion that police were called to arrest Sabrina Brennan at a subcommittee meeting, and that he himself intervened to prevent that from happening. But
excuse me, Mr. Ullum. Mr. Ullum, I'm sorry. If you have a question about this particular agenda item, you may continue. Otherwise, I'm going to ask that you be muted, and we're going to continue discussion of the agenda item.
I'm discussing the agenda item.
No, you're not. You're discussing, you're trying to litigate a different matter. Do you have anything to add to this discussion item of this proposed policy?
Yes, I do. I'm describing why it's important that you have more than just one investigator making the call. The previous investigator accepted the assertion that police were called. A PRA request revealed, a simple PRA request revealed that the investigator never checked up on. The police were never called to that meeting. There was no police dispatched. And that is why it would be useful for people to be able to challenge the decisions that the investigator makes on what the investigator chooses to investigate and what the investigator chooses to believe. I'm sorry if I got there.
Thank you, Mr. Ullum. Your time is up. Thank you so much. Commissioner Lorenas, you have 1 minute to make a further comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
But I'd like to note that the lack of time to discuss this is bothersome to me. But my comment is, Rebecca, thank you for helping me understand this. I would like to just for the record point out that while something is uncommon in legal practice, that's how things change. And I believe that in moving forward into the future, how organizations such as ours, maybe beginning with the State of California Assembly, these processes are going to change. And I'm a little disappointed that our district isn't going to go in that direction. But I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. Commissioner Sabrina, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'd just like to state for the record that a flawed investigation process and a flawed sexual harassment and retaliation policy re-victimizes the victim. And that is what we will be doing with this policy. This policy will lead to the re-victimization of the victim. And by supporting this policy, you're enabling the re-victimization of victims, and that is very unacceptable, and I'm just disgusted. Thank you.
So I believe we have a motion and a second on the table. We have one more hand raised in a member of the public. Kimberly, you have 2 minutes to make a comment or ask questions.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So 2 questions. I just found the policy language. So in looking through it really quickly, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is nothing in here that states that the investigation should be conducted by a third-party neutral. Ms. Green, could you comment on that?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just looking at the investigation. Could the person who asked that question just tell me what section you're looking at? Is this the part under section D, paragraph 2?
So first I looked at the definition and I don't see anything in this and the opening, and I don't see anything in this that specifies that, and normally in a sexual harassment policy that is specified.
Okay, so I'm looking at paragraph 2 under section D, and so it talks about first the internal process for investigating a complaint, and then it says the district board of harbor commissioners will designate an independent investigator.
Right, but the independent investigator does not guarantee that that person is a third-party neutral, which is common in sexual harassment policy, especially for people who work in the ombuds field, which I have. So I think that that language really should be a little more clear. Is that possible?
We seem to be getting a lot of echoing here online. Rebecca, do you care to respond to that?
I didn't really hear a question. I guess the person who spoke, and I apologize, I didn't catch your name, would want language added to independent investigator to clarify that that person should be impartial and neutral. I don't.
Third-party neutral is specific language that is used, and I think, you know, I would propose that it should be added to this document.
Am I being asked for my input on that?
Yes.
I guess I'm curious, can it be added, and would the commission consider adding it? I think it's kind of a standard thing, and especially in the legal arena in terms of sexual harassment policy. So I'm surprised that it's not there.
I guess, in my opinion, independent encompasses all of that. But if there was an inclination to add the word neutral or impartial or third party to clarify, I also don't have any legal objection to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Kimberly, for your comment. I'll just say that I've heard objections to even that language, so I'm fine keeping this language the way that you crafted it, Rebecca. I don't know how other members feel. Sabrina, Brennan, I see that you have your hand up. You've already had 2 minutes and then 1 minute to respond, so I'm going to call on Commissioner Chen Crowley.
So I think independent encompasses all of that. That is the definition of neutral, or whatever, however you want to, characterize neutrality. Everyone's going to have an opinion on what independent is, and I will not be amending my motion, but I will be calling the question right now.
So Melanie, can you take a roll call, please, for the Commissioner Chen Crowley's calling the question?
Commissioner Ryrie,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas.
No.
So I think we've had discussion on this item. Everybody has had an opportunity to speak twice. So I'm going to ask Melanie for, we have a motion and a second on the table. The question has been called and approved. So we'll move on to roll call for the motion.
Commissioner Lorenas,
What are we voting on the motion?
yes.
Correct.
No.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Reiring.
Aye. And I think we need a motion to extend our meeting. It's 9:15. We have 2 more agenda items to get through. And then I moved some things from the beginning of the agenda, public comments and committee updates. And there are 3 consent items that we need to deal with. So do I have a motion to extend the meeting until 10 o'clock?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Nancy, you're muted. I'm going to do roll
Oh,
call.
I'm sorry. I didn't know how I got muted. Yes, please do roll call. Sorry, I bumped it.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush.
Aye.
Okay, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is number 16, emergency replacement of the Pillar Point Harbor Electronic Access Control Program System. Mr. John Worm. John, you need to unmute. There you go. This is
Commissioners, this is a motion pursuant to District Policy 4.3.3, Emergency Expenditures. Concur with General Manager's decision to, 1, enter into an agreement with vendor Get It Tech for an amount not to exceed $26,875.13 to provide and install a new electronic access control system at Pillar Point Harbor, and 2, to execute a work order for an amount not to exceed $5,290 with District's IT consultant, Think Connected, to prepare server and security for installation of the new electronic access control system. And 3, authorize a 10% contingency of total project amount, $32,165.13, in the event that there is need for change orders due to unforeseen challenges, and authorize the general manager to issue change orders up to the contingency amount and approve increase in capital expenditure appropriations of $35,381.64 to be funded by available working capital.
Thank you, John. Oh, I think we've all had an opportunity to look at the policy implications and the background on this. I'd like to make a motion to approve this emergency replacement of the Pillar Point Harbor Electronic Access Control System per District Policy 4.3.3.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. No, let's see. Commissioner Chen Crowley?
I was going to second, but.
Okay, great. So if there's no other hands up, Melanie, can you do roll call for this item, please?
Commissioner Matush,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Chen Crowley, your hand is still up, just so that you know. We're moving to item number 17, new reporting for bills and claims. Julie.
Yes, this item, in recent months, district staff has encountered several issues reporting bills and claims, primarily with determining what disbursements should and should not be included in the pre-approval amount of usually $500,000. Staff has observed that we are requesting approval for payroll and capital project costs multiple times, and this leads to confusions and inefficiencies. Payroll costs are approved during the annual budget process and then with the adoption of memorandum of understandings and employee contracts. Staff believes that the reporting of payroll-related costs and checks to pay employee withholdings should not be reported against the $500,000 or at times when 3 accounts payable runs will be done during a month, $750,000. For the pre-approved amount. In addition, capital project costs are approved when a contract is submitted to the board and funds are set aside to pay for the contract. For this reason, staff feels that capital project costs should not be recorded against the normally $500,000. Reporting payroll-related costs and capital project costs oftentimes force the staff to either delay payment to a construction vendor or delay payment to other operating vendors until the board approves bills and claims again. Staff is proposing a new format to our bills and claims report to reduce redundancy and clarify what should and should not be included in the monthly pre-approval requests. Attached to the staff report are is the new format versus the old format. And basically what it does is it gives you all the same information. It just gives 3 different sections, amounts to be included in the pre-approval $500,000 amount, and any indication that we might go over that, capital projects and accounts payable. And we'll provide complete transparency of all those disbursements. We ask for the board for approval of making this recommended change.
Thank you, Julie. This looks like it took quite a bit of work. Thank you for your work on this. Commissioner Chen Crowley?
You're muted.
Sorry. Okay. I will move to approve the revised bills and claims reporting format change. And again, thank you, Julie, for working on this. I think it's going to be way more efficient than the system we've got right now and still keep transparency.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll second that.
Okay. Great. So we have a motion and a second. I don't see any hands up. Melanie, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Lorenas?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Aye.
Commissioner Matush?
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring?
Aye. So thank you. That that motion passes, and that concludes our discussion. Calendar, we're going to move to consent items that were pulled from the calendar. Item 1, 3, and 7. I think it was Commissioner Chen Crowley first pulled item number 7. Is that right?
Number hold on.
Or number
number 3. Number 3.
3. Okay.
And basically, I pulled it because I think that the minutes should reflect all of the procedural things that happened in that meeting, and I don't think that it did, and the public is entitled to know what happened just from a procedural standpoint. So I understand that. I mean, we can probably just revise it and approve it at the next meeting. So that could go on the agenda for the next next meeting.
Okay. Great. Do we need to vote on that, or do we just move to the next items that were pulled? Can someone advise me? I can't recall if we need to vote on that.
If nobody's making a motion on it, you don't need to vote on it.
Okay, great. So then I think that thank you, Commissioner Chen Crowley. I believe that Commissioner Brennan pulled the other two items. Commissioner Brennan?
Yeah. Let's see what they were. Bills and claims. I wanted to point out to everyone that last year we had our lowest cost year for legal fees in many years for the Harbor District. So I just wanted to point out that there was significant reductions in legal fees last year. And so that's related to item 1. And then with regard to item 7, I was hoping that we could if we could get an update from staff on 7.
Jim? Jim, you're muted.
I'm getting, I was pushing the right button. Yes, Commissioner Brennan, a few months, I think it was a January meeting that authorized me to negotiate or contact the landlord to seek extensions of our current lease and our current office spaces for the district staff. I did contact them and they came back with the 2 lease extensions. The first lease extension would be a 2-year period, taking us from 22 to 21, from 21 to 23. And then the second would be a 1-year extension, taking us from the 23 to the 24. Each year would be a $300 increase in lease payment per month, very similar and exact to the current lease we're under.
Thank you, Jim.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Could we at a future meeting get an update on like a cost analysis on the savings if we were not paying rent versus using our own administrative building, so we can see what the savings would look like?
Yeah, so we can put up a report together for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennan. And thank you, Jim. We're going to be moving to item number B3. Are there any committee updates?
Oh, I don't think that there was a vote on item 1 and item 7.
Did we need a vote?
You need to approve those items.
Oh, we need to approve them. All right. Do I have a motion to approve those items that were on the that were pulled from the consent calendar?
Right.
Yes. I move to approve items 1 and 7 on the consent calendar.
Commissioner Brennan?
I'll second.
Melanie, roll call.
Commissioner Chen Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring.
Aye.
Commissioner Matush.
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
So that motion carries. We've approved items 1, 3, and 7. Or I'm sorry, items 1 and 7, is it, from the consent calendar? And item 3 will be brought back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to move to item B3. Are there any committee updates? No?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm sorry, Commissioner Chen Crowley.
So I just want to report out that the HR committee was established at the last meeting on April 15th. And we had our first meeting, as Commissioner Reiring, or President Reiring had mentioned, and she's done an outstanding job in chairing the meeting. And what was on the agenda tonight, the policies which were approved, were basically the items that we discussed. And so I want to thank the staff and President Reiring for the work that she's put into to all of the policies that have been approved tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen. Crowley, appreciate your support. Commissioner Matush, you have a comment?
I question why we call Section 3 committee updates. In the future, I would say if we've had a committee meeting with something to report out, we list that as a line item. If there hasn't been a committee report, I'm not sure that I see a reason for listing these committees under updates when there are no updates.
I see your point. I think it's well taken. Do we need to vote on changing that? You know, this evening I rearranged the agenda, and I probably intend to do it in the future just to make our business more productive for the public. Is that something we need to vote on or just consider for the future, Tricia?
It depends on if your agenda policy requires you to consider it. If not, I think you can just consider that for the future. But let me clarify. I think you should just take a motion to remove it, and then you can and then everybody will approve whether or not they want to see that on a future agenda.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan?
It's not on the agenda, so I would suggest that you bring back that change to the next meeting so that we can have it properly agendized.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chen Crowley? You're muted.
I was going to qualify with what Tricia said. Basically, it's not that we wouldn't have this as an agenda item. We would only have it as an agenda item if there are committee meetings, correct? I mean, so I would say just leave it as it is and just put the committee meetings that happened on that agenda instead of just taking it off. If there are no committee meetings and there are no updates, but at least we have it on the agenda. I think it is important to have it on the agenda. So, I mean, the agenda item is going to be on there. It's just what's going to go under the agenda item, essentially.
We could have a future agenda item if somebody cared to make a motion at the end of this meeting to review our agenda policy. I'd be up for that. Okay. Commissioner Lorenas, I see your hand up.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, appreciate that discussion. So make sure I understand this. We're going to take up this subject at a future meeting. Is that right? Is that what we just said?
If somebody makes a motion about it.
Okay, if not, then I think we should. So I'll make the motion that we take this up at our next meeting.
Okay, hold on to that thought because we're not to future agenda items yet. Commissioner Matush? You have your hand up?
I don't recall that we had an agenda policy. This appeared, and I think it just as it appeared, it could disappear. We only put in when we have something to report. But if administration, fellow commissioners want to keep it here, that's fine. It just, I don't see a point of listing things that don't have meetings and don't have a point of being there.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right. I will definitely look into it. And if somebody wants to make a motion that we look into it as the full board on the next agenda item, that's fine too. So I've moved public comments to the end of the agenda. So now is the time, if you're a member of the public, to weigh in with your 2-minute comment. Are there any hands up?
There do not appear to be any hands up for comment.
All right, so then we're going to move to commissioner comments. Commissioner comments, are there any commissioners who wish to make a 2-minute comment? Commissioner Lorenas. Yeah, sorry, Lizzy.
Nope.
No, okay, sorry, Commissioner Lorenas, you are unmuted.
My hand was up for the item that you just closed. So can you clarify for me what's happening with this committee thing? Are we on another agenda, or what's happening with that?
So the comment that was made by Commissioner Matush was whether or not we should have committee updates always taking up so much space on our agenda. And I am happy to look into our agenda policy and see what it says with that regard, or if someone at the end of this meeting, we do have the opportunity to put things on future agendas and vote on them. So if you'd care to make that motion, if it's something you want to get involved with and the whole commission wants to get involved with, that's fine with me.
Well, my point was as Commissioner Brennan pointed out, it wasn't on the agenda and we should discuss it. It should be discussed. If we wanted to remove something, we should discuss it at another meeting. So
yeah, some of the things that have happened with regard to the agenda seem to be at the prerogative of the president, and some seem to have been taken up by the full board. So I think that there's a little mix of protocol here. I'm not sure which was the case with regard to these committee updates. I don't think that they were reflected in the agendas when I first got on the board, and then suddenly they were, but I could be wrong. Commissioner Brennan.
I also had a comment about that. I just wanted to point out that the public has a right to know about committee meetings, and this is their only opportunity to find out for most people. So I think I agree with what Commissioner Chen Crowley said. I think it is valuable to have it on the agenda. People want to know what committees we have and hear reports when there are reports. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Lorenas.
So this is my commissioner comment.
Okay.
I had something else in mind, but since the comments were moved to the end, my first comment is a question actually. Is this going to be standard protocol for our meetings? Or have you decided to move comments to the end of the meetings? It'd be helpful to know this as I prepare for a regular meeting.
I don't know. I think it depends on how heavy the agenda looks and how effectively I feel that we can get through the meetings. So I haven't made a decision.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd highly recommend having not only commissioner comments, but public comments at the very beginning of the meeting. That makes it much more democratic and fair for the public. It also allows the commissioners to make a statement. Because of my experience would be that we're at risk of losing the ability to have this comment moment. So that's one. So in terms of comments, I would like to thank staff and in particular our general manager. He's taken some important steps, I believe, in the realm of wildlife protection. One example of that is that notices went up reminding fishing vessels that high intensity lights need to be off once boats enter the harbor, and they need to be off while the vessels are at the docks. And I know that staff has been trying to enforce that. The reason this is important, number one, it's actually against the rules of the road, marine rules of the road, but also it's a hazard. It does represent a hazard to other boats that are coming in because you can't see what's happening with these bright lights. But more importantly to me is these lights flush pelicans off the rocks at night. And it's very difficult for these large birds to land back on their roosting areas, which is the rocks, after being blinded by these lights. They're big birds and they're kind of clumsy. And what happens is they crash land, and almost every year every year at this time, we lose a bird almost every day. And it's usually due to a broken leg or wing or a breastbone. And so it makes a huge difference to have those lights off when these boats come in. So I very much appreciate the efforts. It's not completely fixed yet, but I think this effort is going a long way towards solving that problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenas. That's your 2 minutes. Commissioner Brennan, did you have a comment as well?
And I wanted to mention that I have been put under intense pressure by Supervisor Don Horsley, Kevin Mullen, and Congresswoman Jackie Spears' daughter, Stephanie Sierra, to be silent about the sexual harassment and retaliation that I've experienced while serving on this board. And yesterday I commented on a little bit of it at the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors meeting. Excuse me? Is it my turn now?
You're still speaking. I have
Okay,
the
there was
timer on for you.
an interruption. I don't know if you heard that. So I'd like to get my time back.
All right,
So,
I'll give you another 20 seconds, okay? You have 1 minute and 20 seconds.
thank you. 3 years ago, a former Harbor District bookkeeper and I met with Don Horsley at Pillar Point Harbor. The bookkeeper told Supervisor Horsley about the culture of sexual harassment and retaliation she experienced while working for the district. The bookkeeper resigned from the district because an investigation into her complaint was factually inaccurate, not independent, not impartial, and not just. During the meeting, I reported that I too had experienced sexual harassment, sexual orientation discrimination, and retaliation. I provided a detailed account and I shared the pornographic photos that Harbor Commissioner, excuse me? Can I get my time back, please?
Yep, you have it.
Okay, thank you. Let me restart that paragraph. During the meeting, I reported that I too had experienced sexual harassment, sexual orientation discrimination, and retaliation. I provided a detailed account and I shared the pornographic photos Harbor Commissioner Tom Matush emailed me. The photos are extremely demeaning to women. Tom Matush said he sent the photos because, I quote, Sabrina is a lesbian. Sadly, homophobia was a motivating factor contributing to his perverse behavior. I asked Supervisor Horsley for his assistance. He declined to help. I then explained some board procedures that the Board of Supervisors could enact to help prevent sexual harassment and retaliation in the future. I asked them to enforce a zero tolerance policy and so forth. If you want to hear the whole comment, just watch the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen Crowley.
Yes, I just want to thank the staff again and the general manager for all the hard work that they are doing. I think that there was a newspaper article, I know there was a press release that one of our Harbor Patrol or Deputy Harbor Masters was tested positive for COVID-19. So I just want to remind everyone that a lot of the people on the front line doing a lot of the hard work are are there for the public. And I'm glad, Jim, that you have, kind of let us know and to let the public know for their safety as well. I think to put things into perspective, this global pandemic is something that we all need to be cognizant of. And I think that our staff has done a great job, as I think, the county, the other county elected officials, you're trying to make sure that we're all safe. But I just wanted to put it out there that the tireless work that our Harbor Patrol's personnel do is very much appreciated. And Jim, if you could just give the Deputy Harbor Master our best wishes and for a full recovery, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
That's a very nice thought, Commissioner Chen Crowley. Thank you. All right, I have a comment I'd like to make. Board of Commissioners, earlier in the evening, I called out Commissioner Brennan's complete disruption of the board's business, and I'd like to make a motion tonight to consider her censure at our next meeting. This proposed censure is based on Commissioner Brennan's conduct at the April 15th, 2020 meeting, beginning at time code 3 hours, 15 minutes, and 50 seconds, at which time she strayed from the discussion of the agenda item at hand to shout at commissioners. Further, for the remainder of the meeting, she refused to yield the floor to any fellow commissioners and she refused to come to order. Do I have a second on this motion? Commissioner Chen Crowley?
I'll second that. This is for a future agenda item, correct?
Correct, it is. I'm not taking discussion on this motion at this time. Melanie, can you? Yeah?
Agenda.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, this is to put on the agenda. We're not voting on the issue.
That's correct. This is for a future agenda item. Melanie, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Matush?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryrie,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas, Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas, are you there?
I'm here. So just to clarify, we're voting to put this on an agenda? Is
That's
that
correct. This is a future agenda item.
No.
Okay, so the motion carries. This will be the motion to consider Commissioner Brennan's censure will take place at our next meeting. Does anyone else have a future agenda item they want to have considered? Commissioner Lorenas.
I would like, as part of this discussion, to put on the agenda the question of whether a retroactive censure is legal.
Are you making a motion?
Yep.
Do you have a second? Commissioner Chen Crowley?
Well, the motion, I am not seconding, so there's no second, it sounds like, so the motion fails.
I see Commissioner Brennan has her hand up.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I would like to make a motion that we have a future agenda item.
Are you saying, well, right now we're discussing Ed's motion, or if you don't want to second it, his motion fails?
I did second his motion already, and I also want to make a motion. So if you want to come back to me, I would like to make a motion for a future agenda item.
So we have a motion and a second for Commissioner Lorenas' future agenda item. Melanie, can you take roll call for that agenda item?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Commissioner Reiring,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Yes.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
No.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Matush.
No.
The motion fails. Commissioner Chen Crowley, you have your hand up again?
Oh, no, I didn't, sorry.
You don't? Commissioner Brennan, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have a future agenda item to consider the censure of Commissioner Tom Matush. Can I get a second?
Working on it. Sure.
Commissioner Lorenas.
Sure, I'll second.
Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
No.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Yes.
Commissioner Reiring,
No.
Commissioner Matush.
No.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded. This meeting, do we have to vote on that? I can never recall.
Yes.
We do? Okay, Melanie, roll call, please, to adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenas,
Aye.
Commissioner Reiring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matush.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.